This is going to be a little tutorial on just decompiling the Glock or any other original model that you want to change. I'm also going to have a quick look at the QC file, which is the file that the compiler uses to compile the model. It has all the information of where the animations are, where the textures are located, all that kind of stuff. And what we're going to do is we need to start off by removing the original Glock from the Half-Life 2 content. So you need to install a program called Gscape, I think, or GCFscape. There we go. Which I will include with these tutorials, and I'll also try and include all the other file or programs that I've used, including the SMD importer and exporter for Macs. So what we're going to do with GCFscape installed, we can start browsing through these big content files. We want Counter-Strike source because we're replacing the Glock, so I'm going to just open that up. And from here, we're just going to go into C-Strike, models, weapons. Right, and these are all the models. V models are the ones you see in front of you, and world models are the ones you see on the floor. The world models are obviously don't have so many polygons in, anything like that. But we're just going to browse through. I think we're under pistol Glock. What you notice is there's a big load of files here. This one's for different DirectX versions, a couple of other bits and bobs, but you want to make sure you remove all of these Glock files. And I'm just going to bung them into this file I created over here. I've got a special folder for decompiling things, all my other information for source. Just because it can get a bit of a pain, I've got a lot of shortcuts to my Steam folders, because you'll find you go in and out of them a lot. Source SDK as well. It's right. It's okay. I've exported this, or taken it out of the GCF file, placed it in my folder. Next thing I'm going to do is use this little tool here, Canon Photos MDL Decompiler. You just open it up. I want Steam running as well, and I'm just going to choose model or file, which is the model that I want to decompile. I'm just going to go all the way through and select Glock. You want to be careful with subfolders. If you have too many subfolders, so say you've got tutorial / Glock / decompile / this / that / that, it doesn't like it too much. Try and keep that down as low as you can, because otherwise it may cause problems. So selected that, and this is just the location where it decompiles to, which I've got in this folder. I'm just going to hit extract. It's going to give us some information, and hopefully did it. Okay, so that is extracted. These are all the sub-files that an MDL file is made up of. You've got the hand references and the Glock references, which are files which only contain the mod. Well, they contain the model and the guns. All these other ones here are all the animation files, which only contain bones. How it works is the bones and model, the weighted models from these two folders will follow the movement of the bones of these other folders. It will reference the bones from its own file here to the ones of this file. This is the QC file. It doesn't really matter what it's called, but I'll probably rename it at some point. And it's a bit empty. Let me try decompiling it again. Looks like it's sort of errored up a bit. Try to pause it there for a second because it was been a bit funny. I think I had too many subfolders on one of these directories. I told the output to go into tutorial rather than tutorial / decompile, and it seems to have worked. But I don't want them in there, so I'm just going to drag them back into this folder now. So as I was saying, this QC file is the file which contains all the compiling information. It is a bit of a head melter, brain melter when you first look at it, but I'm going to try and explain through this. First line is basically rubbish. It's just sort of the where all the files are, but you don't really need that. File model name is where the model will compile to, so it will compile to vglock. Hey, let me explain something else quickly. Basically, with this creating weapons, we're not, in a sense, creating any new content for the game. We're not really adding anything. All we're doing is changing something which is already there. All it is changing what it looks like and the animations. We're not putting any new code in, we're not making the gunfire any different to it, how it originally was. It's just what it looks like. So what the plan is that we decompile the original Glock, which gives us all this information about how many animations there are. All of this sort of stuff here is referencing the hard code, which we're not touching. So all we really need to do is recreate the information that it's asking for. So sequence here, for example, is asking for a Glock burst animation. We're going to create those animations, bung it in, recompile it using this exact QC file. We may make a few changes here and there as to perhaps where the textures are, but other than that, we're not making any changes. So with that, I'm just going to probably explain a few more little bits. These Model Studio and Model Hands, these are both referring to the reference files. So you've got a Studio Glock reference, that's the name of the SMD. So that's that one and that one. The CMD materials is the location of the materials, and I'll compile those during the compiling section. The only material we're going to compile is the Glock one here. These hands, I'm going to use the default hands because I prefer to use the default hands. With everything you've learnt with this, you should be able to create your own hands quite happily. But the default materials have all been already in the right place, and it should know where they are, so we shouldn't have any problems there. All of this here, I think, is something that the decompiler just makes. It doesn't really affect anything. You don't use hitboxes in these first-person views, so I normally just select it all and get rid of it. The two slashes here are basically tell the compiler to ignore this line of code. If you want to ignore sections, you would do a /star, and for it to start looking at it again, you // again. I tell you what, I've got another little program which I like to use called Context. This is just a notepad editor basically, but what the difference is, if you want to save your changes, yes, go for it. What this program does is you can put these highlighter files in with the program, and it basically colours in lines of code. So it kind of gives you an idea of what those lines do. So all these blue bits are sort of commands, black bits are for the code, the red bits stuff. Sort of these are all our animation files and things like that. But what is good about this as well is you can set the program up to use exe files as well. So what I do is I hit F and it will run the compiling program, I think it's Studio MDL or something like that, and it will run through and compile it, which is a bit quicker than dragging and dropping, which is what the normal thing. But I believe this line here, I'm not 100% sure, but I think it moves the model. The default will be 0, 0, 0, which is the XYZ coordinates, but if you don't think it's in the correct position, you can sort of move your model up and down without having to go back into 3D Max and moving it. Sequence lines are animations. So we say sequence Glock idle, which is sort of the code, and that's the code as well, uses this SMD file. So this section here I have highlighted is referring to this file here, which is the animation. This one here, again, The burst fire uses the burst fire animation file, burst fire SMD, and it runs it at 40 FPS. These event things, I don't really touch them. I'm not 100% sure what they do, but it's basically saying when the gun shoots, use this sort of effect, which is eject brass. So you get the little brass case and it'll pop out and it'll do it 3 times. Draw, slide, release. But yeah, these are all just events that it will do while it plays the animation. They may even be sound effects, but not 100% sure. Okay, so now that we've extracted the files, what we're going to start off with is just taking this into 3D Max. So that's just sort of a quick basic of the QC file. First one I'm just going to take in, I'll take in this Glock reference just to show you what I was explaining earlier. And right, it's pretty important that in the front viewport your model is looking at you. Otherwise, when you're in the first person, your model, you won't be able to see it, and you will have to do rotations on all your animations. So that is the default direction that you want your models looking in Max. So what you'll notice is that this is the Glock reference file. It has the Glock in just here, which is the with all the back face deleted, which is something that I've been telling everyone to do. Also have a quick peep at the wireframe. You can see there's hardly any polygons on that at all. Very clever stuff. Also included are all the bones, but none of the controllers are there. When the models are compiled, all the IKs, all the everything disappear, but the movement of the bones stays, although the IKs aren't there. So we've got all these wrist helpers, blah de blah de blah de blah de blah. It's imperative that when you do your rigs, that all the bones are the same name, as it references the names from one file to another. But we are going to be creating our own rig, so we don't really have to worry. I've been talking to a few people who've been wanting to add new animations using the default sort of character rigs, and the character rigs are the same as this. They're just this big mess of bones, and it's very hard to animate with Max because none of the controllers are there, and the controllers help a lot with animation. So anyway, bones gun, decompile. I'll have show you the hand reference, which is going to have the arms in. Okay. Actually, I think what I want to do is delete everything first, because that shouldn't have the gun in. So hand reference. Cancel that. There we go. So this one's got all the bones, including the bones for the Glock. So these bones around here are all for the Glock. I think Glock clip, Glock parent, Glock trigger, Glock slide, no doubt. Plus the hands, all rigged. And these are weighted as well. So as we move the rig, the hands will follow the bones. Which is something that we'll look at in one of the tutorials, how to weight our models. Let's get rid of that. Which animation is going to be the most fun? Let's have a look at the reload. So these are all the animation files, these SMDs. I'm just going to drag and drop him in. Blam. Right, you'll notice that all that's in here are bones. There are no weapons, there's no hard mesh models with animation. So I'm going to just press play, and that's going to play through the animation. It's lagging out a bit because I'm recording, but so what we want to do is we need to recreate every one of these animations with our own rig. So we've got the reload, idle, a couple of shoot animations, and a draw. The best thing to do is to not necessarily copy the original animations, but copy the time frames that they're working over. So this reload, for example, is a 76 frame animation when we do our reload, we'll use the same amount of frames, so we'll do it over 76, which is going to be, what, about 3 seconds, 3.5 seconds. And that means it's going to work well with the code. If you did the animation too short, the hard code thinks that the animation lasts, say you did the animation 45 seconds, the code thinks, well, 45 frames, the code thinks it's going to take 76. It'll get to here, finish, and then your animation will just be sitting idle for a second with you not being able to shoot or do anything. So it's best to work with the correct period of time. Dush. But that's how we're going to do it. Once we've done that, we'll do all the compiling things, hopefully get this guy working in game. Well, not hopefully, we will get it working in game. But the next tutorial, we're going to look at creating our own rig using the original arms. Next tutorial after that, probably a bit of waiting, and then we'll move on to the animations.